This is the Root Advice Podcast with TikTok influencer Rudy A. Divorced after 16 years of marriage and single at 39, I share my mistakes and experiences to help your marriage, improve your dating life, and prepare you for life after divorce. Today's episode is really cool. I have Lauren, the Dadvocate, mega star on TikTok, on the show today. And to be honest, I have to admit something. I was a little nervous for today's episode. Why? I don't know. I've interviewed plenty of people, but this was the Dadvocate. So this was actually the first time we had spoken, but we had a great conversation. She's a wonderful woman. And we touched on a lot of things today. We talk about fathers' rights when it comes to custody with children, gender wars, and spousal shaming that we've seen on TikTok. It's been a trend lately, and we touch on that. And we also talk about where that hate possibly came from. But this is a great conversation. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, the Dadvocate. Again, everybody, I have Lauren here, the Dadvocate. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And it wasn't until just before we started that I was like, it's called Rude Advice because he's Rudy.
Exactly. And I was called Rude Dog in the 80s as a kid. And I'm like, that was like a thing, Rude Dog shirts. So it kind of just stuck with me.
Are you rude? Super rude.
I've been told I'm rude, but no, there's a clever name, Rude. A Rude Dog. People have been calling me that since the 80s. So I'm like, yeah, that sounds kind of cool. It's a nice little spin on that.
Yeah.
But thank you so much. Yeah, there you go. I got that reference. But thank you for doing this. And again, real quick, congratulations on 1 million followers.
Thank you. It's
That's
so
a big
crazy
deal.
because I'm flashing back and I'm realizing that like one of my other podcasts that doesn't seem that long ago now, we just celebrated like 100,000, and that was huge.
Yeah.
And like now I was looking at the way that it's displayed on TikTok, and now hundreds of thousands is almost all that matters now because you don't even get to see the tens of thousands anymore. Isn't that crazy? I was like, wow, this is kind of sad.
It is. But again, 1 million followers, that's bravo. I mean, that's a testament to your words and advice and your perspective. And again, from a man's standpoint, I love it. I've been following you for a while before we synced up as friends. And I just wish there were more women like you out there spreading good word in the ethos of the toxic sea of TikTok.
There's actually, I honestly believe that there are so many more out there. It's just that it's not trendy. It's not cool. It's actually quite the opposite. And I got to say, like, I get a lot of heat and I don't care because like I grew up getting bullied. So it's like, you can't hurt me. Like after what I've been through, you know what I mean? Like it's truly just rolls off me like a duck in water. But most people, I don't think most people could handle the heat. What talking about this stuff brings.
Yeah. And you know what, truthfully, I think I've been banned 3 times on TikTok for reasons I still don't know what they were, because I never got a clear answer, but people report your account and you know how that wave of hate comes. But
it's funny, when I was celebrating my 1 million and I was like taking my little screenshot, I actually had to edit out the account warning.
You got an account warning? Oh my God.
Yeah, because I do get content violations and it's never clearly explained. I once had a comment refused to be restored, and the comment was literally the word canceled with a laughing emoji. Illegal.
Yeah,
I have no idea. It was me joking with a friend. We weren't even arguing. So I have no idea how that even happened. My Andrew Tate video is what sent me into account warning status, though, was I made like a joke video where me and my husband pretended I was calling Andrew Tate. He does a really good impression.
I saw that.
But then in the end, like it escalates as like his women escape their cages and come at him with machetes, and it's like meant to be funny and kind of meant to reveal the joke. But then all this footage started coming out of like Andrew very unironically beating women with belts, and so
oh my God,
TikTok like took it down, and I was like, do they think that was real?
You know what? For a second, first time I saw that video, it was on Instagram. I'm like, oh my gosh, you got Andrew Tate. That's a big hit. And if that was your husband doing the voice, I mean, he does a great impersonation of him.
He does a lot of good impressions, but as soon as he started, like, he was just doing it at the dinner table one day, and I was like, I hate to like rope you into another one of my skits, but
yeah,
please. And I made him keep redoing it too. I was like, no, we got to do it this part just right. It was great until it got removed. It's still on YouTube, but it was crazy is it got taken down right away, but then it was actually appealed. And they, at first the appeal went through, and then like 5 or 6 days later, they were like, content warning, account warning. Yeah. I can't even flag comments right now. I cannot flag, not flag, pin comments.
Gotcha.
I can't pin comments.
That's sad. And you know what? That's one frustration I love. And I have a love-hate relationship with TikTok because one, just like you, everything kind of just happened so fast for me as well, as far as the growth and the exposure and all that. But it's really biased and uneven when it comes to enforcing its, community guidelines. And when I see community guidelines like that are being clearly violated, I report them. And within minutes, I get no violation found. I'm like, she's practically naked with no underwear on. I mean, and like, seriously, you can see everything. And I'm like, come on, my kids are on this app. I don't want them to see that. I report it, no violation found. And I have screenshots to prove it as well.
Yes. I've reported the same kind of stuff. And I'm like, she says in the caption that she's 13. Like, what? I think what it honestly is a lot of people I think are giving TikTok like way too much credit. Like they're thinking too much about it. And I don't think it's that serious. I think that they're just relying too much on robots.
I think so.
I think that's what it is.
Yeah. There's no way they can have like a team of people just looking at every reported violation as well. So they got to tweak that algorithm or something. But to your point, TikTok, again, I have that love-hate relationship. But when did this all start? Like, when did you start your account? I did some research on your page. I think I saw the first video was last November. Is that right?
Yeah. It's been like 10 months.
Wow. That's amazing.
And I remember like when it all started blowing up, and I don't really remember like the first point that I started really thinking like, whoa, I think it was probably like probably around 50,000 was when I was like, this is really blowing up. Like I got to start humbling myself and I have to start preparing for hate. And like me and my husband had this very serious conversation. I was like, all right, we have to like get everything like ready with like our security. And we started taking it seriously. But then I was also kind of ready to like fall off at any moment too, because I know how volatile the internet is. And I've seen people like get super viral for a very short amount of time, and then they just stop creating content. People forget about them, and then that's the end of that.
Or they're like a one-trick pony, and they just do like one thing that's funny, and it has its place. But then after that, that's all they have, and then before you know it, you just kind of lost in all the white noise.
Exactly. And so it's definitely evolved a lot because it started as pretty much just father's rights issues. I mean, that's where the whole username and name comes from, the Dadvocate. But now it's like escalated into the partner shaming series.
Yes.
Woman-splaining.
And you know what, real quick, it's funny because I love your titles. I don't know if you come up with the titles or you and your husband kind of have like a collaborative, like creative team, whatever. But I was reading some of these titles. He must have like a marketing degree or just have an awesome imagination. But I love rating hookups with faces, psycho talk, mom charges dad to see son. This woman will steal your man if you don't tell him he's handsome. It's like Jerry Springer titles. They're catchy and I love them.
I know how to craft clickbait. I am like a clickbait connoisseur.
I don't know how to do that.
So it's so funny you say that though, because I remember I was like getting tagged in something and people were like, I can't believe she's not responding to this. And someone was like, relax, man. She probably has like an entire team of people working on this. And I was like, I actually responded. I was like, it's so crazy I'm seeing this, but like, yeah, no, it's just like me, myself, and I, man.
Yeah. And let me ask you this, because did you ever get it to a point where you were like losing yourself for a bit? Because I know that happened to me. I'm just a spirited, fun guy. You know, I made tons of mistakes and I'm very humble with where I am. And that's always been my attitude. But I remember there was a period where all the negative comments were just changing me. And a lot of my followers are dropping saying, you changed. You're like, you hate women now. I'm like, I do? I don't hate women. But it was just my tone and everything was just changing. I had to kind of step off for like a month and then come back and reset. But have you found that? Have you had that time yet where you?
It definitely hits you. And it's crazy because before any of this happened, back when like I would just see other people being famous, I would hear them talk about things like, you know, I've heard of people even saying that fame is trauma. And they'll say things like, this has such a negative effect on your mental health. Like, you have to end up going and like getting therapy at some point. And I've heard other people talk about it. And I've definitely reached points where like I reached out to other creators actually with, you know, like similar large followings who do what I do. And like I've had heart to hearts with Sarah, who you just interviewed, with some other creators, even with Emily King. I know everybody knows Emily King.
She's awesome.
You know, we've had some big heart to hearts, all these strangers who I never knew months ago. You actually do end up able to connect and talk about things, and not only just troubleshoot tech stuff, but talk about the emotional levels of it. And so there have definitely been times where I have to like stand back and on one hand, think to yourself, you know, you need to make sure that you're being as responsible with your platform as you can be. But on the other hand, not always catering to every freaking hater out there and not always apologizing to everyone who wants to make you think you did something wrong. Because quite frankly, you're never going to make everybody happy.
Right.
At all. And sometimes like you really have to commit to not responding to the hate. You have to commit to it, because once you feed into it, then that's when you start losing yourself. And there have been times my husband has like taken my phone out of my hand.
That's a good man.
And
that is a good man.
You're going to take a break.
My girlfriend's done the same thing. She goes, that's enough. Put it away. And I go, I can't let them win. Just give me a second. Just let it go.
And in reality, you putting the foot down is winning, because they get so pressed when you ignore them.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Before TikTok, did you have any like social media channels, like movie channels or anything that was the same topic, or did this all just happen kind of by accident?
So yes and no. I had like tried a couple things. I was actually in stand-up comedy for a really long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
When I met my husband, I was actually touring, and I was living out of a suitcase. I would go to Texas, Florida, New York, the whole Midwest. I was just like always traveling, touring, doing shows. And so I think that's also what has lended a lot of success to the TikTok thing, because when you're on the road, you're used to 3-minute set, 3-minute set, 3-minute set. And until recently, 3 minutes is all you got with TikTok. And so I've always been able to articulate my thoughts within a like quick, sell it to them quick type of landscape. But, you know, I never would have imagined after all those years of like waiting until 1 a.m. to show up and then like hope the last 8 people left are still willing to listen to you after the guy before you just did a bunch of completely inappropriate jokes. You know, now I like go live on a random Tuesday evening in my living room and there's 200 people in there. And it's like, I am never going back to stand-up comedy again. But as far as social media goes, no, nothing really. But it is interesting because I had tried like the influencer thing for a little bit, and I'd gathered on like my Instagram main like 7,000 followers, and I was trying to use that to sell stuff, and that was definitely an instance of like losing myself for sure. And I was just like, this is so cringe. I would like go back and look, and it'd be like a picture of me and my daughter and then like a can of bleach, and I'm like, this is so gross, dude. Like, and so I deleted it all, and I literally manually removed like 6,500 people. And I just made it only people I knew. And I shut down everything. I shut down all my social medias. I like changed my last name. I was like, I don't want any kind of this. And then I made a TikTok, and I was like, this will just be a little platform. I won't post any of my personal information, and I'll just be this lady that talks about fathers' rights issues. Maybe some people will listen.
And look where you're at now.
And so, yeah, I'm very glad that I like locked everything down ahead of time, because it's made that aspect a lot more manageable.
So you said you're married. So how long have you been married?
It's going to be 6 years coming
That is
up.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, it's wild.
So cool.
It's wild because I met his son, my stepson, when he was 5, and he's a 13-year-old high schooler now.
Okay.
And now we have our own little 5-year-old.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Wow. And how did y'all meet, through school, or was the fellow comedian as well, or how did that happen?
Yeah, I gotta say, we met in the best way that you could possibly meet a person, which is through mutual friends.
Yes.
I got invited to a very small get together. It wasn't even a party. It was like 5 of us total, maybe, but it was one of my girlfriends, and she was like, come over and hang out with, this guy I'm dating, who happened to be my current brother-in-law. And, they broke up, but I ended up meeting him, and it was just a crazy thing because he was like, oh, hey, I'm TJ. I like to draw comic books. And I was like, I like to draw comic books. And he was like, you fucking liar. Anyway,
really?
I like to do improv. I'm like, cool, I do stand up. He's like, yeah, I'm on tour right now. I'm literally on tour right now.
Planets aligned. Everything, adult landed on his shoulder.
I wasn't looking to date. I really enjoyed being single just from like a freedom standpoint. Like there was nobody getting on me for how much traveling I was doing. And, he's like a single dad. I'm sure he wasn't necessarily like rushing into a commitment or anything either. So it just started with us just like talking, and we would text, and like, keep in mind, we're both on tours. So we're both going to hotel rooms every night on opposite ends of the country, and we would just talk and get to know each other. And then the stars aligned. We were both coming back from tour, and we were both flying back to Detroit. And so I was like, we have to meet up and go on a date. And we did, and we just never stopped dating.
That is so cool. It must be like the funniest atmosphere between both of y'all, just kind of making each other laugh. That's got to be like a cool energy.
It's really cool. We've done shows together, and like, obviously he has his own TikTok thing going on. So it's something that we're able to like, he helps me a lot with my tech stuff. Big time. Okay. He's helped me a lot with my merch. I've been like, oh, I really want this on like a t-shirt, and he'll just draw it up on Procreate and just send it to me. Nice.
So was he involved in like, how did the Dadvocate, how did that whole mission start? Because I have your mission statement here, and it's so well written, and I just have to read it on the podcast. We lend our sword to the basic and necessary principles of keeping fathers in a home, bridging the divides between men and women. That's beautiful. And that message needs to be shared more. But how did that all start?
So, obviously I met my husband as a single dad. And I got to say, as of today, as of right now, we have such an amazing co-parenting relationship. I'm really grateful for it. I have no complaints and nothing bad I want to say. But at the beginning, it was not so. It was not that way. They were never married, just a couple of single kids in college that, ended up having a kid together. And it was just like, I watched this man. He had moved from where he was living 250 miles to make sure that he was living like a mile away from his son. He wanted to be involved in everything. Every single day he made himself available to be there. He gave up his job. He was working with Mitch Albom, by the way. I don't know if you know who that is. He wrote The 7 People You Meet in Heaven. Maybe it was The 5 People You Meet in Heaven. Tuesdays with Maury. Someone listening is going to know these titles.
Okay,
like, yeah,
I'm just going to nod yes.
And, just to commit 100% to being a dad, despite the fact that the relationship was obviously not a commitment that he had made. And yet, in spite of this, I was like, wait, so you don't have custody? He was like, no, when a single mother has a child in Michigan, she has what's called natural guardianship, which means that she just has sole physical and legal custody. And I was like, oh, so what does that mean for you? And he was like, well, it means that I get to see him whenever she lets me. And I'm like,
wow.
Wait, what? You don't have a schedule? He's like, well, I could go get a schedule, but it's going to cost a lot of money. So at first they were trying to avoid the courts. And that's like such a battle that I think a lot of single fathers have, is whether or not to do court. Because on one side, I think it's like 80% are decided outside of the courtroom because no one wants to pay that much. No one wants to do that. They'd rather agree outside, which is great. I think it's the way, if you can do that, that's ideal.
You make it work.
But then there's all these like other scary things, such as the concept of like retroactive child support, which is if you're not already in the system paying a set amount, but then she decides to go back years later, they can calculate what you should have been paying and make you owe that much, even if you were giving her money every month, or even if you were taking the child all that time. And so that's pretty crazy. And he started telling me all this other stuff, like that he wasn't allowed to have overnights. And I was like, why can't you have overnights? Like, you moved here, you have a room with an extra bedroom. And he was like, well, she says because I'm half deaf, I can't have overnights. And I'm like, what? Have people raise kids all the time? That's crazy. Like, that wouldn't hold up in court, right? That's crazy. And it was just like, I just noticed that there was so much crazy stuff that could happen. Like he's involved with the school system, and yet he doesn't find out that his own son is diagnosed with ADHD for a full year until a parent-teacher conference.
Wow.
And it's like, what? And so I'm just dealing with this stuff privately because no one wants to hear about it. When I tell you that I have literally lost a friendship because of talking about this, and they're like, I don't like you complaining about some mom. And I'm like, it's so much more than that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
a bigger picture.
How it's unfair. But people, they don't want to hear about it because they're like, I don't see why he can't just be happy with every other weekend. And like, why can't men just be happy with every other weekend? And to me, I was like, well, would you want to see your kid only 4 days a month? Mm-hmm. Really? Especially when you moved out here to be a dad?
Yeah, and there's a lot of laws that need to be revisited. That's probably just archaic and written like 50, 60 years ago, but it does need to be revisited. Like, and to kind of like bring up your point, when I was getting divorced, it was like a mutual decision. She didn't leave me for another man. I didn't leave her for another woman. We tried years of therapy, and we're like, let's just call it. And we did. Yeah. So it was we had the same attorney, believe it or not. And the attorney's like, you know what? In my 40 years of practicing law, I've never had this situation before. Like, yeah, we're cool. We just want to wrap it up.
I didn't know that was legal.
Yeah, but apparently you can. So when he had the decree in his hand in his Texas, he showed me my visitation rights where I was going to see my kids 1 weekend a month. And it had like this, like written like procedures of when I can pick them up at 5 o'clock. And I'm like, no, this is bullshit. I go, we're going to split custody 50-50. We've decided, my ex-wife and I, 7 days for her, 7 days for me. He's like, okay, we'll just write that in the sub B clause. And we did that. But again, just to see the template already built, and maybe men don't know to fight for that or fight against it. Maybe they think that's just the way it is. It would break my heart because, every father loves their kids. There's deadbeat dads out there, but for me and your husband, we love our babies. Yeah. And just the thought of being away from them one day it killed me, and it kills most dads. So that 7 days off was really hard for me. So much less just hearing people just be dismissive about, isn't he satisfied with just a weekend? Like, no, we love our babies. We want to be part of their lives.
Yeah. And it's wild to me that whenever he would say that he wanted more time, people would be like, why are you trying to take him away from his mother? And it's like, no one's trying to take more than is ever necessary or appropriate. It's just we would like to see a little bit more equal shared parenting, you know, because it's not just a mom's job. And I think a lot of the backlash that a lot of fathers' rights advocates seem to get is, let's take, for example, there's this sound that's going around on TikTok, and it's, if you're thinking of dating a single dad who doesn't live with his kid, which, first of all, that's all of the single dads, really. You really, honestly, that's technically, even if they get the kid week on, week off, they still don't always live with their kids. So technically, that's all single dads. It goes, before you believe his sob story about how he's being kept from his kids or she's crazy, just remember he's the reason that she's a single mom.
Oh,
and
God.
I'm like, what? But how is it that you're trying to tell people, oh, don't believe a man, don't believe his story, but believe mine?
Yeah.
What? So you're literally here telling us that your ex is a piece of crap and we're supposed to believe you, but he's not allowed to tell his story.
Yeah. It's like yeah. What do you think that comes? No, what do you think that comes from? It's like, it's okay. There's a lot of double standards, and I love how you speak to them. But on social media, it seems like there's this free card for single mothers or women to just kind of just backlash, abuse, humiliate, and just belittle ex-husbands and ex-boyfriends. It's like allowed, but if a guy does it, he's immediately flagged and the video is pulled. But why do you think that is?
I will say it has been, since the dawn of time, one of the best comedic tropes to throw the husband under the bus. Like, I remember I used to work Renaissance festivals, and, you know, like, they're all about that bawdy humor. And man, I used to get the best tips of my life when I would just roast the shit out of people's husbands, because they'll take it. Conditionally, like societally, they are conditioned to just take it and to laugh and take it on the chin. And like, I'm tough. I'm tough and I can handle it. She is not tough. She is strong and mighty and independent, but don't make fun of her.
Okay.
So there is
like the Will Smith thing
aspect, right?
Go ahead.
But I think the other fear that these women have when they hear about men telling their truths of, hey, I'm being alienated from my children. This woman is holding me to asinine standards, making ridiculous demands, making me dance like a monkey to see my child. When they hear these things, they feel like it discredits them in some way or invalidates their story in some way. And what I wish these people would understand is that one situation does not invalidate another situation. Right. Like, you can have your a-hole baby daddy who absolutely treated you like trash, just like he can have, you know, this woman who maybe tricked him into thinking that she was on birth control because she always wanted a baby and she didn't actually want a dad to go along with it. Both of those things have happened to people, and neither of them invalidate each other.
But it's like you said earlier in the beginning, it's the controversial hot takes that get the traction and kind of drown out, you know, the good stories that are out there. So, but that's just the way it is. So that's how the whole Dadvocate, I guess, movement came about. Just kind of your experience with your husband.
Yeah, I wanted to just, you know, finally get out all these frustrations that I had found with the family court system. And so my very first video is, I didn't know anything about like filters or transitions. All my captions are terrible because I didn't know that you could go edit them. I thought that it's just like whatever they auto generate, it's got to be what I get. Yeah. But I'm just like rambling on and on about all of the things that I've found as injustices within the system, all the different contradictions that occur throughout family law. And then the next thing you know, I'm like messaging my husband. I'm like, hey, my video's only been up for like 40 minutes. Is it normal to already be at 10,000 views? And he's like, sorry, what?
And that's how it all began, huh?
And yep. And it's just, I think that video's at like 500,000 now or something. And
yeah. Well, it's
important.
I
just kept like answering people's questions, and
it just like a snowball going downhill, right? Look where you're at now. You're in a wonderful position. And again, with the whole account warning, I hope they don't do anything like they're not supposed to be doing, because again, there is a bias. There's a lot of speakers like yourself who I know have been threatened or taken down or attacked, but yet there's these other female creators who just love body shaming and insulting men, and they're rewarded with verification and, you know, just tours and all that. There is a huge double standard and a bias on TikTok, which I'm very uncomfortable with sometimes. So for me, I don't have a lot of pull. I guess I get 250,000, but there are times where I feel like there's situations and topics I shouldn't even mention or talk about. I'll just stay out of it.
Oh yeah. There's a lot of stuff that I'm like, maybe I shouldn't. It's so tough to figure out now because it's like so vague, right?
Yeah. And let me ask you this, because there is a lot of hate. There's a gender war, and I'm against the whole gender war movement, because I just think there's a lot of people, just as an older guy, I'm 45, right? Been divorced. I've done the whole thing. And potentially going to get remarried again with my girlfriend. You know, we're working that out. So she's a wonderful woman. Every podcast I got to mention her.
Would you be mad if she proposed? I have to ask.
She's so traditional she wouldn't, but I'd be like, what? Like, really? Okay, sure. It would freak me out, but she's so traditional. I saw your video on that, and I know you proposed to your husband, right? I wouldn't mind it.
But a lot of guys were mad about it. They were like, nah, that would be a no for me.
It wouldn't be a no for me. I'd be surprised because, she's very traditional. Like, so for her to do that, I'd be like, really? Whoa. Okay. Like, wow. But no, I'm not going to let her go out of my sight. No way. But
see, it even caught me off guard because I never thought that I would be married or have kids. Like, it was not ever something that I like dreamed or fantasized about. I never cared about any of that. And so like, I never thought I would even be a mom. And so when I like met the single dad and I'm falling in love with him, I was like, I could do stepmom. It's a good like part-time gig. That's not bad.
That's cool. And let me ask you this. So again, going with TikTok and just this gender hate and this back and forth, why do you think there's such hatred toward men? From the men's side, I can speak to that. I know you probably can as well, being that's your main topic, but why do you think there's such this movement? Where's this hate coming from on the female side?
It's definitely a hurt people kind of thing. I feel like the biggest man haters have an origin story. Like they have a dark villain origin story. I was just reading this one woman's today who was just like absolutely ranting about her ex. And there was this one part of the story where that I could tell just really hurt her deep. She was talking about how he was the sole provider, right? And she was at home with the 3 kids. And she found out through bank statements on the weeks that like she was like begging for groceries. She was like, we're eating like grilled cheeses. Like we need more food. And he was like, hey, the budget's really low. But then she checked the bank statements and saw that he was like going out to eat every day. And I was like, man, I can see why that one would like stick with you like a thorn in the foot, like just bugging you long after you leave that wreck. Like, he was eating Jimmy John's. I was hoping to grilled cheese. Like everybody's got that villain origin story, right? And there are statistics that indicate men are more aggressive. We can't just lie and say that doesn't exist.
No, we are.
That it's definitely not necessarily an equal playing field when it comes to like who is committing all of these like most egregious violent crimes. And so people really latch onto those statistics to justify then not only being mad at the some men who hurt you, but like being able to extrapolate that further. And like I said, it's part of that, like as old as time, we've been able to throw men under the bridge because they can take it. And it's cool. Whereas like women are delicate flowers and you kind of look gross if you make fun of things that are pretty.
I've never thought of it that way. That's a very good perspective. I'll be thinking about that all night. And, just like it's okay to hit a man, like physically, I've seen TikToks where the other thing that just blows my mind about that app is that physical abuse toward men is celebrated. That shocks me. It just blows my mind.
I'm kind of guilty of that, but it's not. I'm not guilty of it being only toward men. I like to watch UFC, but I love the women's matches. Absolutely. They slay. So I guess I'm just like, I like a little bit of consensual violence, but not non-consensual violence.
I mean, like at a club, I've seen videos on TikTok where like a woman runs up to a guy, she punches him, and the guy just stands there because we can't hit back. We have to take it. And I look at the comments and it's just celebrating. I'm like, what are people talking about here? Yeah.
You know what I've noticed? I have seen videos on TikTok where a woman is literally actively keying a man's car and he's recording her literally keying his car. And you know what the top comments are? I want to know what he did. I want to hear her side. What did he do to her?
Oh my God.
Top comments every single time.
Yeah. Like 4,000 likes, right?
If a man simply raises his voice to a woman, which he shouldn't do, but if he does that, canceled. You're done.
Yeah, it's just it's mind-blowing at times. And you're right, there is a lot of hurt. And my girlfriend, she's studied psychology. She's brilliant. And she's also a feminist. So she's also my compliance control. So before I put a video up, I go, watch this a couple of times. What do you think? She goes, I agree with that. It's fine. Go ahead, post it. I'm like, woo, all right.
So now we know if you ever post something inappropriate, we can come for your girlfriend because she's standing for all women. She speaks for all of us. And so if she lets it pass the vibe check and it doesn't pass the vibe check,
Yes,
she's done. She's an apostate to all women.
She's done, or I didn't go through her. Like I broke the procedures and didn't go through that time. But you know what? She is a feminist, but she's not like an extreme feminist. And
I consider myself a feminist.
Yeah, and
for sure.
I'm not a male feminist, but I have a daughter, and when you have a daughter, it changes a man. You see the world in, like they say, you see the world through your child's eyes. I started seeing the world through my daughter's eyes. Like, for example, she was 13, already developing. I remember walking at the store and seeing older men checking her out. And that pissed me off. And that had me think of something. Oh, my God. So this has probably happened to other women. So they've probably been gawked at or looked at by men since the age of 13. So they've been dealing with this their whole life. So it was like a revelation in my mind, and, you know, treating them with respect is what they've been asking all this years. Like, that's the simplest thing we can do. So again, I don't consider myself a male feminist, but I'm very open and understand the troubles that my daughter has shared with me and what my girlfriend has shared with me.
And before anybody hears you say that and they're like, oh my God, you never realized that this could happen to women. It's like, well, you never lived as a woman, but as a father, you're now spending so much of your life with a young woman that now you're able to see that experience.
Exactly. And again, I'll admit she's like in college now, and I miss her. She moved out already. She moved out this past week, and I've been trying to deal with that. So it's been really heartbreaking. But you're right. I didn't know about it. It's things that you don't think about until you're there and you see it firsthand. And just to see her frustrations and how she's sometimes scared when I look at her, I'm like, why is she so timid? I look around her and she's surrounded by men, like at the store. And I'm like, oh, so it's just eye-opening. Yeah. It changes the man. You're more sensitive to treating what a woman goes through. And that's why I've always treated women with respect, because I want to be the man my daughter can look up to.
Yeah. And I think the same thing happens actually with boy moms. I mean, it definitely happens to me. I think, you know, you live your whole life and you have to deal with these awful men, right? And it's so easy to just be like, men bad. But then, you know, like me, you meet this magical 5-year-old boy who changes your life, and you see his innocence and you see his giving and his kindness and his selflessness. And then you see the way that people are treating boys and men. Exactly. And it definitely changes you as a woman too, because you're like, nah, I got to protect him from this crap, because y'all cannot project these awful, vile things on this child, you know. Right. It's how much of that projection is actually creating the problem. I'm not going to say all of it by any means, but it begs the question.
Yeah, it definitely does. And that's my fear. And that's why, like I said, I have a boy and a girl and another boy on the way. And this is the first child my girlfriend is going to have. She's 36 and this is her first child. So her as a feminist, she also admitted like, hey, I'm starting to kind of think about what my son's going to go through. I'm like, you see, now it's just opening perspective. And I think all these like Andrew Tate, all these red pill guys, I know for a fact none of them have a daughter, because if they did, they wouldn't be talking that way.
Oh, Andrew Tate was sure to bring up the fact that he had a niece in his final message.
That's not the same, dude.
He also makes sure to bring up the fact that he has a gay friend.
Jesus.
He pulled out like the whole
every card.
Justice League of tokens, man. For this final stop. Oh yeah, my husband and I, it was like a whole date night. I was like, do you want to just roast Andrew Tate? And he was like, yes. Nice.
And you know what? Here's my problem with Andrew Tate, because one of my friends, he's like 39, he's single, no kids, and he adores Andrew Tate. So he and I got into a heated argument the other day, because he doesn't have a daughter, I do. And he goes, no, what people don't, this is something, here's a perspective that I never thought about. I'm like, okay, I'll give you that, maybe. He goes, he is playing a role. Think about The Rock in wrestling. The Rock is The Rock. He's just, the volume's up to 10. He's playing a card because he knows that's what's going to get the most attention. But if you listen to a 2-hour interview or listen to people who've interviewed him, they'll say he treated them with respect and he actually has a message. He just likes to be loud to get the clicks and views. And I'm like, okay, I get that from a marketing standpoint. But my problem is those clips are the ones that are shared with young men, and they don't think like you do. They don't think about the true message. They're just taking it verbatim and literal. And that's the problem. These young men are just hearing that piece and they think that's the way to go about it. So it's doing more harm than good, because no one reads the article. They just look at the headline.
It's hilarious too, because one of the things that he brought up was, he was like, it's not even me sharing these clipped together out of context things. It's not even me. It's all these other people. And I'm like, yeah, these other people trying to sell your program. Do you not realize you created this monster? You provided all of this footage, and you were like, use whatever you want to sell this program. And you know what people did? They didn't take your clips of all the wise, smart, life-changing things that you say. They took the most harmful, ridiculous, just like chauvinistic crap. You know, the clip that's coming to mind is when he was saying that men can take trips by themselves, but women cannot, because they belong to the man, but the man doesn't belong to the woman.
Yeah, that's just ridiculous.
And I've heard people try to justify it further. They go, well, if you listen to the full clip, he's saying that it's because he can't protect her when she goes out traveling by herself. It's okay, very noble, right? But then when you're going out taking trips by yourself, who's protecting her?
Exactly. Somebody told me that he's Muslim, and like a lot of his traditions are rooted in that culture. And I'm like, I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know anybody who's Muslim. So he's just like an extreme version of that. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I guess that's good to know.
I feel like he's the final boss of polarity coaches.
That's actually good.
Like, you notice though, he never uses the word polarity. Like, he's trying to like market it as something different. Like, this is the iron top G mindset. Like, no, dude, you just are like Zach Rody on crack. You're not original, man. Well, you know what? And that's what I admire about you, Emily King, and a few others, because with your growth and, you know, the voice you have now and the reach you have now, there's a point where, you know, I just realized this about 6 months ago, that your words have power, and you truthfully can influence somebody either to go to the dark side or the good side. And I love how you have just a calming voice, and you have just good intentions out there, and just wanting to give people perspective. You never belittle, you never insult, you just kind of bring up toxic behavior, and this is wrong. you know what I'm saying? Just a little bit.
but you know, like, what's her face? You're not like what's her face, the one I can't stand who laughs.
I know exactly. True.
Yeah, whatever. I blocked her a year ago. You're not like her, just like deliberately insulting men.
I don't ever need to insult people's physical appearances. That's the thing, is I'm never going to superficially roast you. I'm going to roast your actions, your behaviors, and your words.
That's fine. But you know what I'm saying?
So, yeah,
but it's a good intention. And I remember, like I said, 6 months ago, somebody reached out to me and says, hey, you've really helped me. Your videos, you have no idea how much they've helped me. I've decided to get divorced. I'm like, whoa. I hope you went to counseling. I hope you fought for it. Because again, my messages are like, if you love them, you fight for it, you know, invest years in trying to make it work before going to that decision. And they said they did. But that's when I realized I have to be very careful with what I put out there. And
exactly.
It's
funny because I'm a 5 foot tall woman. Sometimes if I'm not wearing any shoes, I'll rank it right 4'11". But on the internet, I'm a giant. And when you're a giant, you have to watch where you step. And it was just wild because, you know, my husband has even pointed it out to me. The way he said it was right after I had done some kind of call out video. And he said, man, when you point your sword, the army runs. And I was like, yeah, so I got to kind of watch that, right? Like, I just did a partner shaming episode where I thought that I found the first male partner shamer. And then
you did? I haven't seen that video. A guy actually shamed his wife publicly?
Yeah, he put a lockout tag out on his wife's car because she was parking really shitty. So she couldn't go anywhere. But then she got him back and put one on his car. Oh,
okay. It sounds like more like a prank than shaming. I don't know. I have to watch the video.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, you know, I thought that this woman was so galaxy brained because she used his own partner shaming video that he used to shame her against him. Because in the video, he's like, here's how you do it. And then she did it the very next day. And so I was like, that's so funny. Like, this is why men don't partner shame, because not only do they get roasted in the comments, but then their wives do this. And it was kind of funny. But then the man and his wife both reached out to me and they were like, no, it was totally like mutual. We were both in on it. Like, he didn't really shame me. Okay. And so I was like, like, sorry guys. And I like apologized, you know, and I was like, sorry, buddy. Like, if you go to his video, like show him nothing but love. Mm-hmm. But, you know, like, yeah, I could have influenced that very negatively. And he got back to me and he was like, okay, it seems like people are listening to you and like the hate has died off. Now everybody's being cool. And I was like, thank God, buddy. I'm sorry.
Well, that's good. I'm glad. I mean, the fact that you at least reached out to him, spoke to him and didn't like insult him, you know, that have that like a back forth. Because the reason I'm saying that is because that's exactly what happened with me and Robbie Harvey, who I can't stand.
I can't think of who that is.
Oh, good. He just kind of took a clip of my some of my content, and he's got like 1.5 million followers. He took a piece of it, took it out of context, and painted this narrative that I wasn't a good dad, all these other things. Ooh. And I just had, and this is the same week my dad died. This happened like 2 months ago. And I reached out to him and I'm like, dude, you got the wrong idea. Let's kind of talk this out and kind of clear the air because I'm just getting bombarded with hate. And he says, no. You know, the hell with you. He insulted me. I'm like, what the hell? So it became a back and forth thing and it's behind me now, but it was a horrible experience. And it was my first really contact with an influencer who like was punching down and chose not to even have a conversation. I'm like, you're always preaching about conversations in your videos and you don't want to talk to me. Come on. I'm you know, you just took the wrong narrative and you went the wrong way and you just did not do that. So the fact, again, I'm complimenting you that you actually spoke to this person is great and just kind of cleared the air.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that actually because I don't know if you remember the one partner shaming episode I did about wife strike.
No, I don't remember. I've seen a few of them, but I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, it was the woman who was going on a wife strike against her husband, which like actually I even cited this in the video. I fully support strikes of any kind, right? Just to prove a point. A lot of times they work, but the difference was she was recording it and filming it, and it was an entire account dedicated to the wife strike, right? Okay. And showing like what he was doing, what he wasn't doing. And so I made an episode about it. And she did reach out to me and I brought her on a live event. Oh. And I talked to her. Okay. And so she never stopped wife striking. I mean, actually, I think she did. I think she just put up a message saying she was going to take a break from wife striking. But yeah, she got her story out there to all my followers. And I was like, all right, well, best of luck to you. And I was like, I won't make any more videos. And yeah, I was like, cool, beef is squashed.
That's cool. At least you have the dialogue. At least you can do is have a dialogue. But let me ask you this. Why have you seen this become a trend? Because I know you love your husband and I love my girlfriend. I would never purposely shame them on a platform that could potentially go global, you know, for, you know, whatever's going on. I don't have that in me. I'm sure you don't have that in you, but why is it you're seeing this trend of wives doing that? I get their frustrations. I get there's things are not going good at home, but to globally humiliate your spouse, I just don't have any, I don't agree with that at all.
Yeah. I'll tell you this, many of the partner shamers that I have covered, a lot of them say the same thing, which is, I didn't expect this to blow up. Oh. And so when you think about it like that, it's like, have you ever posted a passive aggressive tweet or a passive aggressive Facebook status? Something along the lines of like, man, sure love it when I make plans with someone and then they completely bail. Yeah. Like especially when you like know they're going to see it, or even if you don't know they're going to see it and you just like have to get it out there for like someone to like feel your pain and be like, yeah, brother, that sucks. We've all done some iteration of that. And we know like we're probably going to delete it the next day, or it's just going to like fade into obscurity. And I think that's what a lot of people are used to. But TikTok is a very different platform, as we've talked about before, you know, just watching how these numbers really skyrocket because it's the most used, most frequently used, most largest inhabited social media platform we have right now. And so that push goes out way harder than any of us have ever been used to. Yeah. And so for a lot of these people, I think it was like a genuine, like they truly had no idea in their mind that it would blow up this way. Unfortunately, unfortunately, most of them do not have the grace to recognize that fully, then admit that they shouldn't have done it. Yeah. Most of them end up doubling, tripling, quadrupling down to a point that they're like blaming everyone but themselves. There's the people who are like, oh my God, I'll never forget the laundry lady. She was like, someone sent this to my husband, and that's an invasion of privacy because he's in the military and he's a very private man. It's like, why were you filming him and putting him on the internet?
Exactly.
And it's our fault that you did that.
I can agree with that. The reason I bring that particular topic up is because back in January, this is when I was banned for a second time. There was a woman, I forget her name. She was calling out her husband who couldn't do laundry. And she even put a picture of him, and he had some sort of chart kind of writing down instructions on how to do laundry. And I just said, hey, you shouldn't call out your spouse like that and humiliate him. I mean, because
he was trying, but his system was like a little bit like
he just couldn't get it down. But she was calling him out that he was struggling so much. And it was called, what was it called? There's a special term for that where guys purposely act stupid.
Weaponized incompetence.
Yeah, that's what she was calling it. And I never heard that term until she said it. And I go, look, most guys, and speaking from a guy's perspective, especially when you marry young like I did, we go from our mom's house to our wife's house, and we didn't learn those skill sets. Like for me, being Hispanic, I was taught do guys work, go outside, fix the car, yard work, things like that. So I didn't know how to do laundry because my mom didn't allow me to do that. Right. So there's a lot of men out there. Yeah. So there's a lot of men out there who don't know how to do that. And again, that's kind of on our part as well, because we can take the initiative to learn how to do it. But when we don't, and that skill is taken from us, it can be like a learning curve. And my real job is I'm an instructional designer. So I specialize in adult learning behaviors. And it's also how you communicate that. So if you want your husband or your partner to do something and you're constantly yelling at them and belittling them, it's not going to go through. It's like having that boss behind your back and you're on a call at a call center. Who can perform and remember anything after that event? No one could. And the spouse is the same. So I just said, hey, maybe just, talk to him differently. I just provided some feedback, and then I was told I was a misogynist. I was mansplaining.
Yeah,
I was mansplaining all this stuff. And I'm like, just talk. This is from a guy's perspective. I just wanted to help. And I was hated for a long time. And then that finally went away. But that's
also why my voice has been so powerful, is because it's not a man's voice.
And thank you for that. I really do. There's a lot of things you can touch on that I can't get near. I'm saying the same things
a lot of other guys are saying, but the difference is who I am saying it.
Exactly. And I wanted to ask you, what's woman-splaining? I saw that. I love the sound of it, but please tell me what that means. Like, it's for the people who are listening as well.
So it actually originally started, the very first episode was about priority egg, which is when the man leaves the egg on top of the egg carton from a second carton, because it's like, that's the last egg from the last carton, but he wanted to get rid of the carton so it wouldn't be so uneven when it balanced.
Okay. Yeah.
And I opened my fridge one day and I was like, what the fuck is this? And I was ready to partner shame. And before I did, by the way, almost all my stuff is based in my own mistakes and fumbles and stupid stuff I've argued about through marriage. So I'm just trying to help people avoid my mistakes and find humor in it before they actually get mad. But before I decided to partner shame my husband, I messaged one of my other guy friends. And I was like, my husband just did this. Can you mansplain this to me? And he was like, I can. And then he explained why he did it. And I was like, oh. So then I explained it, but I originally presented as I want to mansplain something because I was trying to change the terminology to be I'm explaining men as opposed to I'm condescending to you all. And people actually initially got really mad at me about the priority egg episode. They were like, oh my God, I'm so sick of you women using the term mansplaining to explain something, just that any man explaining something. And I was like, I don't think you guys understand that I'm just trying to make a joke and not use mansplaining as it's supposed to be used.
Yeah.
I'm for you. I'm on your team. But so then I changed it up. And so then I tried to call it husband-splaining. But then I was like, not everybody has husbands. Some of these guys have long-term boyfriends. So I was like, I'm just going to woman-splain. And so basically woman-splaining is pretty much the same thing as mansplaining, but it's when I condescendingly explain things to you instead of
that's a difference. Okay.
That's the only difference. Because I'm a feminist, and I think that we should have the same things you have. If you can have an awful term for speaking condescendingly to people, so can I.
Wonder who came up with that term, by the way. I didn't even know about that term. Again, I'm a Gen Xer. I don't know if that's even an excuse, but when all these other terms that are coming out that I see on TikTok, I'm like, who came up with that?
I've learned about a lot of these. Like, I learned about that through TikTok too, and I have to admit, the first time I heard it, I was like, oh my God, that's what my mom thinks my dad has been doing her entire marriage. Because I grew up with my mom accusing my dad of weaponizing incompetence. She would literally like come up with these ideas. She would be like, your dad is deliberately forgetting to do the bathroom in order to drive me crazy and hurt me on purpose. And I'm like, Mom, I'm pretty sure he just forgot to do it. Like, I forget to do stuff all the time. I'm not trying to hurt you. Like, you know? And so as soon as I heard it, cause I was really frustrated being a kid, like growing up, hearing like my mom complain about my dad, because to me, I'm like, I'm a kid. I like my dad. He plays games with me. So
that's awesome.
I don't really care if you're complaining about him, you know? So like that was my first thought. But then my more recent thought regarding weaponized incompetence is that it's actually kind of combated by another term, which is Hanlon's razor, which I don't know if you've ever heard of Occam's razor.
I have.
The idea that the simplest solution is probably the solution.
Yeah.
Hanlon's razor is another idea that is, do not attribute to malice that which can be easily explained by stupidity or ignorance.
I love that. That's something Spock would say. I'm a Vulcan. That's something very logical.
Yeah. And as soon as I heard that, I was like, yeah, that also explains what's going on. Because like a lot of the times they just didn't understand the assignment, or they honestly forgot. And people forget that forgetting is a valid excuse. Who forgets on purpose?
You're right. Exactly.
Nobody.
That's a very good point. Okay.
So yeah, sometimes people really are doing things to be an a-hole. And there is a reason that weaponized competence exists. Like, we've all known that guy who's like, no, you shouldn't ask me to wash the dishes. I always do it bad. So you should just ask someone else. Like, that's where it's rooted from. But I think it's just way over bubbled on the boiling pot. It's fallen over because now it's just you being used to explain things that are very simply not them trying to ruin your life.
Yeah. Okay. That kind of reminds me of, like, again, I was married 16 years, and, you know, I have a great co-parenting relationship with my ex-wife. Her husband is an awesome dude. We all get along great. It's awesome. But I remember when I was married, she was somewhat of a perfectionist, and I loved helping out. And I know saying that is even like triggering as well. You're not supposed to help. I'm like, okay, I did my part. It was 50-50, right? And I remember I loved washing dishes and just mopping. And I remember I wouldn't do it her way, and she would get mad at me. And then I would be hurt because I'm like, hey, I'm helping here. Everything's done. But she would still get mad at me. Like, I can do 100 great things, and she'll spot the one thing that I didn't do her way. And she would just go on and on and on. And I would feel so hurt. And it comes to a point after years of being married where we just stop caring. We're like, all right, if I was been helping all these years, and you're still getting mad at me no matter what I do, I'm just going to give up. So why bother helping you if I'm going to do it wrong anyway? So a lot of men are caught in that situation. I completely
understand that, because if it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Exactly.
And I recognized that I was doing that at one point, because my husband was working from home and I was gone at work all day. And we had fallen into this habit where, and I will admit, I have anxiety, and a lot of my anxiety can stem from unclean or unkept environments.
We have so much in common.
And of course, I married an ADHD husband.
I have ADHD.
Oh, so you are your own worst nightmare.
Oh, yeah. My girlfriend calls me out all the time. I'm like, well, you wanted me.
Right? I know, he's got me there too. Like, I do find you incredibly handsome. But so I'd fallen into this habit and pattern of, I would come home ready to look for everything that was wrong.
Ooh,
and just
really?
Ready to just, because it's just the way that I work is I would come home. And the reason for that is because before, when I was living by myself, I knew that I would only be coming home to the way I left it. And I had never fully adjusted until I made the conscious effort and decision to adjust to the fact that that was never going to happen again. And I also realized over time that in doing that, I was also missing all of the things that he had done. Because I was just seeing what wasn't done. It's a lot easier to miss things that just happen without you realizing. Like, golly, sure has been a long time since I changed a light bulb, said no one ever.
Right.
When someone else is changing all the light bulbs in the house all the time. Like, I had this big pivotal moment one day when my husband went out of town and I woke up in the morning, bed to myself, and the cats are just like meowing incessantly at me. And I'm like, dude, chill.
Really?
Why are you like this? You're never like this. And then I was like, oh, because you need food.
The basic essentials of life. Yes.
Right. Like, my husband just feeds them every morning because he always wakes up earlier than me. But stuff like that, you just don't think about it unless you're talking about it. And
That's
so then
true.
I started shifting it to, like, I started communicating more what would actually work for me. Like, for me, I was like, hey, never be afraid to brag about yourself. And it actually would help my anxiety if, like, while I'm at work, you send me a message and be like, hey, just so you know, I vacuumed the stairs and did the dishes. Dude, thank you. Thank you. Because now when I come home, I know I get to look for that. And not just the sock under the couch or the cup that didn't get put away from last night. I know now that something is done. And I'm like, whereas otherwise, like, I might not know. But I know that doesn't work for some people. Some women are like, if you tell me what you did, I will resent you for it. Like, how dare you come
Everyone's
to me
different.
for accolades?
Yeah. It's funny you're like that because we inherently are like that. Like when you go to movies, right? We're all looking for mistakes or something like that, like continuity flaws or things like that. That's just how we are. It's so odd. But Lauren, thank you so much for doing this. Where can people find you?
Mainly TikTok, The Dadvocate. On Instagram, it's also The Dadvocate IG. So just one little ending at the end there. The Dadvocate was already taken. I'm on YouTube. If you search The Dadvocate, I will come right up. I've been editing a couple projects in the works. I'm going to have my interview with the FBI's most wanted dad. Nice. And me and TJ's reaction to the Andrew Tate final response video. So, dadvocate.net as well. If you want to become a Dadvocate, check out the merch. We have a new embroidered Have the Day You Deserve hoodie. Is my new favorite item.
Nice. Well, again, thank you so much for doing this. It means a lot to me.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This has been so fun.
Once again, I want to thank Lauren for being on the show, and thank you for listening, everybody. Please go support the Dadvocate herself. All her social media links are down below in the show description. Go follow her, leave her a comment, let her know that you heard her on the podcast, and let her know what you think. Also, for myself, if you love the podcast, no matter what social platform you're listening on, please leave a review or a recommendation. This tells the algorithm that the show is doing well and you love for other people to hear it. So that would be doing me a huge favor. If you're listening on YouTube, please like, subscribe, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you. And thank you so much for listening. I have an amazing guest for next week. This is a Stoppable Jerk. His videos are cringe. I've been following him since he had 5,000 followers on TikTok, and now he's over 1 million. His nice guy character, I crack up every time, but I'm going to have him on the show next week. I can't wait for that interview. So until next week, everybody, I'll see you next time.